Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a story that changed the world, the story of Mahatma Gandhi and the fight for Indian independence. It is a tale that does not begin with grand battles or thunderous speeches from a throne. Instead, it begins with a shy young man on a ship, feeling completely out of place. Imagine a 19-year-old boy, dressed in a stiff Western suit, sailing from Bombay to London. His heart is full of dreams about studying law, but his mind is filled with a deep fear. He is so shy that he can barely speak to the other passengers. He is terrified that someone will ask him a question in English, a language he has studied but is afraid to speak aloud. This nervous young man is not yet the leader the world will come to know. He is just Mohandas, a boy who has left his young wife and his family behind in a small Indian town, carrying the weight of their hopes on his shoulders. The journey is a long one, and he spends most of it in his cabin, eating his meals in solitude to avoid the embarrassment of using the wrong fork or knife. He is a stranger in a strange world, trying so hard to become an English gentleman. Little did anyone know, least of all himself, that this deeply uncomfortable experience of being an outsider would become the very foundation of his life's work. He was learning, firsthand, the sting of not belonging, a feeling that would eventually help him understand the pain of an entire nation living under foreign rule. This is where the story of the Mahatma, the great soul, truly starts, not in power, but in a deep, personal vulnerability. The young lawyer, now known as Gandhi, finished his studies in London without much fanfare. He passed his exams, but he was still that same shy and awkward individual. Returning to India, his attempt to be a lawyer in Bombay was a complete disaster. He froze in court, unable to speak a single word during his first case. He was a failure in his own eyes. So, when a job offer came to help with a legal case in South Africa, he grabbed it like a lifeline. He arrived in the coastal city of Durban thinking it was just a one-year contract to help his career. But what happened there transformed him forever. 1 week into his stay, he was asked to travel to another city for work. He bought a first-class train ticket, boarded the train, and settled into his compartment. That evening, the train made its way through the Natal Hills. Suddenly, a white passenger entered and looked at him with disgust. He went and called the railway officials. A policeman then came and ordered Gandhi, an Indian man, to move to the third-class van compartment. Gandhi politely refused, saying he had a valid first-class ticket. He was not making a political statement, he simply believed he was in the right. But the authorities did not care about his ticket or his polite reasoning. They physically threw him and his luggage off the train onto the cold, dark platform of Pietermaritzburg station. He sat there shivering all night, his pride shattered into a million pieces. The physical cold was nothing compared to the deep chill of humiliation he felt. In that long, dark night, he made a fateful decision. This was not just a personal insult, it was a question of human dignity. He would not run away. He would stay and fight this injustice, not with violence, but by finding a different kind of strength. This was the awakening. After that night on the cold station platform, Gandhi did not rush out in anger. Instead, he began a journey of deep thought and action. He stayed in South Africa for over 20 years, and it was there that he developed a completely new method of fighting. He called it satyagraha, a word that means truth force or soul force. He was tired of the old ways of responding to oppression, either by running away or by fighting back with fists and guns. He wanted to find a third path. He started to see that violence only made the oppressor more brutal and made the victim as morally bad as the tyrant. The core of his idea was simple but radical. A person must refuse to cooperate with an unjust law, but do so without any hatred or violence in their heart. They must be willing to accept the punishment, even pain and prison, without striking back. The suffering of the protester, he believed, would act like a mirror, forcing the oppressor to see the ugliness of their own actions. He put this into practice by organizing the Indian community in South Africa to burn their registration papers and peacefully protest unjust taxes and laws. He led thousands of men and women, including his wife Kasturba, in marches across borders without permits. They were beaten and jailed, but they did not raise a hand in defense. The world started to notice. A small man in simple clothes, who had once been afraid to speak, was now leading a mass movement without a single weapon. He was essentially taming a violent government not with fear, but with the sheer moral force of organized, peaceful suffering. This was not passive surrender, it was active spiritual resistance, and it was becoming a weapon more powerful than any gun the empire possessed. When Gandhi finally returned to India in 1915, he was no longer the failed lawyer who had left. He was a respected leader, but he was not yet the leader of the national movement. The people called him Mahatma, a title meaning great soul. For the first year, his mentor, a wise leader named Gokhale, gave him a simple instruction. Do not speak. Do not take a position. Just travel the length and breadth of India with your eyes and ears open. And that is exactly what he did. He traveled in third-class train carriages, squeezed in with the poorest of the poor. He saw the real India, not the India of the big city lawyers and the princes, but the India of the dusty villages, the starving farmers, and the exploited laborers. He began to dress like them, in simple cloth, because he said he could not lead people he did not understand. His first major act was not a grand national speech, but a local fight. In a place called Champaran, farmers were being forced by British landlords to grow indigo, a cash crop that paid them nothing and ruined their soil. They lived in fear and poverty. Gandhi went there to simply take notes and record their statements. The local British authorities ordered him to leave immediately. He politely refused and was prepared to go to jail for it. This act of simple defiance sent a shockwave through the country. For the first time, a leader was putting his own body and freedom on the line not for a big political idea, but for the real, tangible pain of a peasant. The case was eventually won, and the farmers got relief. The message was clear to every Indian who heard the story. Here was a man who did not just talk about freedom from a safe balcony. He was willing to bleed, starve, and go to prison for the poorest person in the land. The entire country began to turn its hopeful eyes towards this strange, saint-like politician. The years after the First World War were a time of great turmoil. Indians had helped the British war effort with soldiers and money, hoping for more rights in return. Instead, they were met with harsh new laws like the Rowlatt Act, which allowed the government to jail anyone without a trial. It was a backstab that enraged the entire nation. The turning point came with a horrific massacre. In the city of Amritsar, thousands of unarmed men, women, and children had gathered in a walled garden called Jallianwala Bagh for a peaceful meeting. A British general named Dyer blocked the only exit and ordered his soldiers to open fire without warning. For 10 minutes, the bullets rained down until the ammunition was almost exhausted. Hundreds of innocent people lay dead and dying. The brutality of the act shook the world, and it shattered whatever faith Gandhi still had in the goodness of the British Empire. He said the very foundation of the government was evil. He then launched a radical new phase of the struggle. He called it non-cooperation. The idea was simple. If Indians just stopped helping the British run their own country, the British would become powerless. He asked students to leave government schools and lawyers to abandon the courts. He asked people to give up their foreign titles and honors. But the most powerful symbol was his call to burn British-made cloth. For centuries, India's rich textile industry had been destroyed by cheap factory-made cloth from England. Gandhi saw the spinning wheel as a tool of liberation. He insisted that every Indian should spin their own cloth, called khadi, making them self-reliant and breaking the economic chains of the empire. The response was electric. For the first time, the freedom movement stopped being a hobby for the educated elite and became a mass movement of millions, from city merchants to village farmers. The people had found a way to fight back, and they did it by peacefully dismantling the system, brick by brick. For a decade, the struggle for freedom ebbed and flowed. Gandhi had even been imprisoned, but he never stopped thinking of ways to shake the empire's foundation. Finally, in 1930, he found the perfect symbol, something so small and common that it was pure genius. Salt. The British had a wicked monopoly on salt. It was illegal for any Indian to collect or sell salt, even just a pinch from the sea. This forced every single person, the poorest farmer to the richest merchant, to buy salt from the British and pay a tax on it. It was a tax on life itself, because the human body needs salt to survive. Gandhi announced he would break this law. On a bright morning, he and a small group of devoted followers left his ashram and started walking towards the Arabian Sea. The march was 240 miles long and lasted for 24 days. As they walked, the story spread like wildfire across the globe. Village after village turned out to greet them, and the small group of marchers grew into a massive river of people. The world's press watched with curiosity as this small man with a bamboo staff made a military campaign out of walking. When he finally reached the coastal village of Dandi, he woke up early, said his prayers, and walked down to the muddy shore. He bent down and picked up a small, lumpy piece of natural salt crusted on the sand. That simple act was an earthquake. That tiny grain of salt, held in his humble hand, was a direct and public defiance of the most powerful empire on earth. It was a signal heard across India. From that moment, millions of Indians everywhere began illegally making salt by boiling seawater on their roofs and in their courtyards. The police arrested over 60,000 people, filling the jails to overflowing, but the message was out. The empire's unjust law had been broken by the simple act of picking up salt, proving that freedom was not something they had to beg for, it was something they could just take. The Salt March made Gandhi a global icon, a figure who seemed to belong to another, simpler age yet was shaking the modern world. The British government, realizing they could not simply ignore him, invited him to London for a conference to discuss India's future. It was called the Round Table Conference. The world imagined a grand entrance, but they got something else entirely. Gandhi traveled to London wearing nothing but a simple loincloth and his homespun shawl, carrying his own goat for fresh milk. The press went wild. A reporter asked him if he felt underdressed to meet the king. With a twinkle in his eye, Gandhi famously replied that the king had on enough clothes for both of them. It was a moment of pure, disarming wit, but it also carried a serious point. He was not there to play the game of the elite. He was there as a representative of the millions of half-naked, starving Indians. The conference itself was a failure in political terms, as no agreement was reached. But the real story was what happened outside the palaces. Gandhi did not spend his time with lords and prime ministers. He went to the textile workers in the gloomy mill towns of northern England. He visited the poor districts and met with the people who were out of work. He told them that their suffering was the same as the suffering of the Indian peasant, and that they were both victims of the same greedy machine system. He brought a spiritual, human connection to a political fight. When he returned to India, he did not go back to a grand welcome in the cities. Instead, he withdrew to a simple village to focus on what he called the constructive program. He doubled down on fighting untouchability, the brutal social system that condemned millions of Indians as impure and forced them into lives of cleaning latrines. He called them Harijans, or children of God, and lived among them. For him, political freedom from Britain was meaningless if Indians were still enslaving each other in their own hearts and homes. The dream of a united, peaceful India was the light that guided Gandhi, but a dark shadow was growing. As independence came closer, a deep religious divide was being stirred up between Hindus and Muslims. A powerful political party called the Muslim League, led by a stern and brilliant lawyer named Muhammad Ali Jinnah, began demanding a separate nation for Muslims. They called it Pakistan, the land of the pure. Gandhi's heart was broken by this idea. He saw religion as a personal matter, a path to God, not as a basis for a modern country. He argued that Hindus and Muslims had lived together for centuries in villages, sharing the same language and culture, and dividing them was a sin against the very idea of humanity. He even offered the leadership of a free India to Jinnah to keep the country united, but the political machine for partition was now unstoppable. The Second World War had drained Britain, and they were ready to leave. They sent a man named Lord Mountbatten to quickly draw a line on a map, slicing the land of the Punjab and Bengal in half based on religious majorities. The announcement of this partition was not a clean, legal process. It was like throwing a lit match into a pool of gasoline. People who had been neighbors for generations suddenly became mortal enemies overnight. Hindus and Sikhs on one side of the new line, Muslims on the other, erupted in a frenzy of murderous violence. Millions of people had to flee their ancestral homes, making terrifying journeys on foot, with trains full of slaughtered bodies arriving at the stations. It was the largest mass migration in human history, accompanied by an unimaginable bloodbath. Everything Gandhi had lived for, the non-violence, the unity, the truth force, seemed to be burning in the fires of communal hatred. The man who had fought an empire with love was now watching his own country tear itself apart with hate. While the rest of India was drowning in a sea of blood and fire, the rest of the nation's leaders were in the capital city of Delhi, celebrating the birth of two new free nations, India and Pakistan. Flags were going up, but so was the smoke from burning homes. And where was the Mahatma on the day of independence? He was not at the celebrations. He was in the city of Calcutta, a city on the edge of a volcano. Just a year earlier, the same city had witnessed the great Calcutta killings, where thousands had been butchered in the streets. Now, with partition, it seemed ready to explode again. Gandhi went to a dilapidated house in a Muslim-majority area with a small group of followers and announced he would fast until the madness stopped. He said he would fast unto death. The 78-year-old man, frail and exhausted, lay on a simple cot and stopped eating. For the first few days, the killing continued. The young hotheads were still out with their swords and guns. Then, on the fourth day, as Gandhi's pulse was growing faint and his kidneys were failing, a miracle began to happen. A group of young Hindu men, their hands stained with the blood of revenge killings, came and fell at his feet, throwing their weapons down. They said the fighting was over. Then a delegation of Muslims came and promised peace. The sheer moral weight of this one man's fragile life, offered up willingly to stop violence, succeeded where an army could not. The leaders of all communities signed a declaration of peace. Gandhi had stopped a communal war with his own hunger. He had proven, with a terrifyingly final demonstration, that his weapon of soul force worked. The man who had failed to stop the partition of a country had just single-handedly saved a city. He had held a nation's fragile soul together just long enough for it to take its first breath of freedom. The peace he brought to Calcutta was his final victory, but the hatred he had pacified there was still simmering in other corners of the new nation. He returned to Delhi, a city now swollen with refugees living in despair and anger. He began another fast to force the new Indian government to return assets to the new nation of Pakistan and to protect the Muslims still living in India. This act enraged the extremists who believed he was betraying the Hindus. On the evening of January 30, 1948, just a few months after achieving the independence he had dedicated his life to, Gandhi walked to his daily prayer meeting in a garden. He was walking with his grandnieces, his arms draped around their shoulders for support. The crowd parted to let him through. A young man named Nathuram Godse stepped out of the crowd, bowed before him, and then fired 3 bullets point-blank into his chest. As he fell, the last words on his lips were said to be a cry to God. The man of nonviolence died a violent death, killed by one of his own countrymen. The news flashed around a world still recovering from its own global war. The great soul was gone. But while his body was cremated on a sacred riverbank, his message did not turn to ash. His life story is not just a chapter in history books. It became a manual for the powerless of the world. Years later, a young pastor in America named Martin Luther King Jr. would read about the Salt March and understand that the same love force could break the chains of segregation. Across the ocean in South Africa, a man named Nelson Mandela would take the idea of non-cooperation and use it to eventually dismantle the brutal system of apartheid. Gandhi proved that true power does not roar in a tank or thunder from a bomber. It resides in the quiet, unbreakable dignity of a person willing to suffer for what is right without hating back. He showed us that you cannot fight darkness with darkness, you must fight it with a light that refuses to go out, a light that even now, in the hands of ordinary people, can still change the world. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.